So let's jump right into what I think is the most important of these tips, and probably not as well known as some others. So I'm sure some of you casters are aware that after the first cast of a spell, of certain spells, the successive casts go faster and faster each time. So you notice the first one I charge up is much slower than casting out the second and third ones, and so on. But if you use a quicker spell before the longer charge up spells like Comet, a quicker spell such as this Swift Glintstone Shard, and then switch to Comet, you'll effectively skip the initial cast timing of the first Comet, and not only does it seem like it's casting it faster, but you'll also get the damage of a quicker spell in before the actual Comet comes out. So obviously that takes a bit of cycling through your spells, and if you have a lot of them it can get kind of annoying to switch through them quickly. So the next tip is that if you hold up on the D-pad, it'll switch to your first slot. You see whenever it flashes red, it'll go right to your first slot. So no matter where you are in your spell order, you can just quickly switch to it. So be sure to use that when you're in an intense boss or PvP battle, as it'll help you reset to where you are and not have to look over to where your spells and miss the action in front of you. Another tip that's more PvP focused is all your spells that say you can charge them, such as Comet, where it says charging enhances potency. That means you can obviously just hold it longer for more damage and whatnot, but it's also good against players for if you're just chaining your spells over and over again, like mashing the button. You know, that's just an easy timing that can just spam roll out of the way. But if you mix up your timing a little bit by charging one of them, you can maybe catch an opponent off guard. In my experience, this can really just take a player out of their comfort zone by just spam rolling towards you to close the gap. But if they do close the gap, this kind of brings me into my next tip, is the Carian Slicer sorcery. It's very good, and I haven't seen too many people using it to its full potential, or using it in general. First of all, it's really quick to cast, and you can keep chaining it, like, you can just keep swinging as long as you have stamina. And you can also kind of mix up the timings with it, and still kind of keep the chain going, like that. But where it really shines is that it basically has a full moveset like a normal weapon does. You can, you have a rolling variant where you kind of like lunge forward a bit. You have your backstep into it actually, which is the first time I think in a Souls game to where if you backstep and use a spell, it has a different variation of it. But most importantly, you can actually cast it while jumping, as you can a couple other spells, but as long as you have initiated the jump and that you're not falling off a ledge, you'll be able to cast the spell anytime in the air, and then it can chain right into itself when you land on the ground. Another nice thing about the Slicer is it obviously deals magic damage, and so it'll chip through those pesky shield users. It also deals a lot of damage for how much FP it costs, but obviously the trade-off being you need to be in melee range for it. But other spells you can jump and use are like the Swift Glintstone Shard. You can jump and cast it as like the Carian Slicer, but obviously you can't use it for bigger spells like Comet or anything that really takes more than just a quick use to cast. There's probably a couple more spells where you can cast in the air like this. The other one that I know is the Night Shard, but those are the only three that I have and am aware of. This next tip is more of a make sure you grabbed it, and that's the Radagon Icon Talisman, which increases your cast speed, which is obviously good for PvP and PvE, so make sure you grab that for all your spellcasting needs. Another minor tip is that most staves don't come with a skill attached to them, or straight up can't have a skill attached to them like the Lusat's Glintstone Staff. So something I recommend for casters to have something in their offhand to fill their skill slot is a parry, which will always override your main hand skill, but if you don't have one, then it doesn't really matter, and that way you don't have to two-hand your left-hand weapon to use it in the first place. Especially for PvP, it's really nice to be able to just quickly parry someone and then maybe blast them with a spell, or if you're up against another magic user, go and grab Thopsis Barrier to reflect the spells back at them. Another nice piece of utility for PvP and PvE I like to have in my offhand is the Glint Blade Phalanx skill. Now obviously you'll have to two-hand this from your offhand so you can use it, but being able to just have the utility of the homing blades is very nice. That way you don't have to take up a spell slot if you don't need, and so you don't have to cycle to it and use as much mana if you want to use something more intense like the Carian Phalanx. Another useful tip for PvE is that gravity spells deal a lot of extra damage to dragons. Now my character's a bit over leveled, so you'll kind of notice that it's deal a lot more damage than normal, but you'll also see that it'll only take about 4 hits for it to stagger, and that's usually about the same amount of stagger damage. That doesn't really scale with level, so you'll be able to get a free crit if that's more your forte, or you can just, you know, get a couple spell casts in. And always make sure you aim for the head of a dragon, as it deals much more damage. Well, thank you for watching, everybody. I'm not sure what other niche information like this that I could provide that isn't already out there, but let me know if you want to see more of this type of video. I know the quality of my videos aren't on the level of someone like Sunlight Blade, but I hope you learned something useful from this video. And if you did, consider subscribing. Getting pretty close to 1,000 subscribers, which is pretty cool, so it'd mean a lot if you did subscribe. I am also going to be streaming my any % speedruns on my Twitch channel, so feel free to check that out if you want. But other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.